Hello and welcome to The Talk with Tariro. On the program today, we are agreeing with you as Zimbabweans in terms of the stress that we have faced with COVID-19. Some have even gone on to experiencing panic attacks because of all the uncertainties pertaining to COVID-19. We know we are in a lockdown. We don't even know when it's going to end. We know when we are going into public places, we're supposed to wear masks, issues of sanitizing ourselves. We know the risks that are there. Our infection rates are continuously rising. But one thing that we need to realize is life has to go on. Over the past weeks, yes, we're talking about how COVID and how we can address it, how we can cope. But now we want to look at where we are saying life has to go on as Zimbabweans. But initially, let's just try and address how COVID-19 has impacted us. We are looking at our physical, mental, and complete well-being. And at the end, we are saying as much as it has impacted us, life has to go on. We need to move out of this pity party that we are in and continue with our lives. Yes, under lockdown, activities happening and life moving on. And who better to help us address this particular interesting, challenging issue than Nyaradzo Vicky Mabintidze. She is a holistic leadership expert, not new to the talk. Nyari, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Tariro, for inviting me. How are you?
I'm well. As a leadership expert, I know you've been mentoring, talking to people, particularly on the challenges they were facing just with coping with COVID, physically, financially, psychologically, their health, complete well-being affected. How has been the issue?
Exactly like you said, I'm a holistic leadership expert, and holistic really talks about the whole being. So my specialty is not just about technical IQ-based leadership on how to lead economies, countries, and governance. Holistically, I'm talking about leadership from a spirit, soul, and body level. Yes. And one of the key tenets of my specialty is that unless you're able to lead yourself, you're not able to lead anybody else, let alone an organization or anything that you partake of. So I found that this time of COVID-19, I've really been inundated in my coaching practice, especially just to get people back to the basics of holistic leadership, leading yourself based on the 4 pillars of nutrition, sleep, and healthy eating, exercise, and social life. So those are the pillars that basically people have had to focus on. To say, before you even go into your business and come up with a strategy to pivot and get ahead of COVID, to make your business survive, are you in the right frame spiritually, mentally, and physically and socially to be able to make the right decisions? Because all those things that we talk about actually affect your health and your immune system without you knowing. A person who's whole, spirit, soul, and body can actually come in contact with a COVID-infected person, and their immune system is high and they will not be infected. But a person who's not whole, spirit, soul, and body, who's not holistically led from within, will actually succumb to infection. So the idea of infection, yes, we do have to wear our masks, wash our hands continuously, and sanitize and do all the right things, social distancing like we're sitting here. But the most important thing is actually your internal immune building system is what is going to make you survive and soar through the pandemic.
Yes. So when we're looking at how people have been affected, those that you have interacted with, we still have some who are still down and almost out. How do I move from that?
Definitely. The first thing about COVID, I mean, even from a personal experience, I'm a consultant, like you outlined my work. I'm a psychologist, I do training and I do coaching. And a lot of my work, I work from my home office. So COVID is a perfect opportunity for me to actually formalize what I do. pre-COVID, people would probably side-eye you, like you work from home, like you don't have a huge office and a big building. But I was already working on virtual platforms with my staff, with my partners in the business. But you'll find that the first day of lockdown, I actually struggled to actually follow my normal routine. Because there I am, I'm sitting and thinking, okay, so we are locked down today. And suddenly I had a million things to do outside the gates.
Exactly.
Where I can go for a week or two indoors, just working and interacting. The next thing, I just need to get out there. So the first thing is that whole feeling of claustrophobia, where people actually feel like they don't have a choice. The power of choice have been taken. We know what's good for us. We know what we need to do. But subconsciously, feeling like your power of choice has been taken away from you affects you. If you look at globally, we've seen protests in America, overseas, where people are saying, just let us go out there. Why are you locking us down? You're infringing on our rights. So firstly, this whole thing affects you mentally, actually, to realize you're powerless. You're being controlled by something that you can't see with your physical eyes, that you don't know much about, and it doesn't have a cure. So it affects you mentally. Then it starts affecting you emotionally when you start making sense of it and you start building on the fears. So your interpretation of the process actually then begins to build an emotion around it, where you start being afraid. So your fear will, depending on your diet, exercise, social support system, and your sleeping habits, your fear can then build into something worse like depression. Then you start having panic attacks, insomnia, and so many other things. But it's very normal for every normal person to actually be stopped in their tracks and be shocked by COVID. We've all gone through that.
Yes, we have all gone through being shocked with COVID, but must we remain in shock? We are saying life has to go on. Yes, COVID has come. It was unexpected. Our normal routines affected a lot. And like what Nyari was saying, we lost a lot. Some even in terms of the work that we're supposed to be doing, in terms of quite a number of things. You talk to businesses, they will talk about their losses. Almost everyone would talk about how we've lost. But we're saying, should we continue being depressed? We'll continue with this discussion after the break. Join us. Welcome back. We continue with our discussion. Nyari, in the first segment, you spoke about the fact that sometimes as a people, we feel like we don't have a choice, particularly if you look at the lockdown, the restrictions that are there. And for me as an individual, I'm saying definitely we actually don't have a choice. So
I come back to what I said, your 4 pillars of support: your social support, your exercise, your health, your diet, even your sleep patterns. When you're balanced and healthy in those areas, you actually then do actually realize that you do have a choice. So I'll give an example of me. I realized on the first day of COVID that I did have a choice. I had to reinterpret and reframe what COVID is. So I'll tell you that part of our success in any situation that we encounter, whether it's COVID or anything that comes our way and the curveballs that are thrown at us in life, the success comes on how you interpret the problem and frame it to you. So something can happen to you and you trip. And for you, it's just, you pick yourself up and you go. But to somebody else, the way they interpret a trip and reframing is like, I'm clumsy, or why did I trip? Maybe something made me trip, and you make a big deal out of it. So the way we interpret this thing actually makes you realize that you do have a choice. We have a sense of agency. And I realize that I do have a choice. And my choice is that I choose to live. And I choose to live a healthy life. And I choose to continue being the mother to my beautiful children and make sure that I'm the conduit that God uses to make sure that their destinies come to pass. So I have to be alive, I have to be healthy, and I have to have an income. So that's another thing that stresses people. Will I have a job? What will happen with my business?
I'm an informal trader, Nyari, and already
Precisely.
I've been told the president has said we are not essential services. And you are talking about, I have a choice. Now I can't sell my tomatoes that I used to sell at Mbari or wherever at the corner of the road. I can't do all those things. And I actually don't even know when I'll be allowed to make those movements. And you are saying, I've got a choice to live.
Yes.
Sometimes people then tend to look at it and say, it's got grades, I don't know what to call it, where the up north, yes, you can. But when we're looking at me in the villages or me in Epworth, it becomes a different ball game altogether.
I disagree.
Yes.
We all have a choice. So I'll get back. So I have a choice to live. So the first thing is you're faced with a situation. So what are you going to do?
Yes.
You're an informal trader. What is your social environment telling you? That the government is not doing enough. We're all going to die of COVID.
Yeah.
And people are dying all over the world. So your WhatsApp, your social media, your Twitter, and everybody, your news, your international news channels are showing you mass graves of people dying of COVID.
Yes.
You have a choice to feed your mind on things that feed the fear and the negative narrative. Is it true? Yes, it's true. People are dying world over. Is it true? We're not that well equipped. Nobody was well equipped for COVID.
Yes.
Nobody was ready for this. So even the best health systems were not ready for COVID. So it's a truth. But are you going to feed yourself that? Or you have a choice to feed yourself and build a circle around you of relationships and information and sources that build your will to live. So whether you're an informal trader, who do you now start having conversations with?
Yes.
Is it the women that say, vasikana, ngati shinge tinopararama ngati namate, muda sugar ere, ndokupai sugar. Muda beans, indine beans. Ndokubatsira ine. Because we do have a community of Ubuntu. We're African people, and we still have people who have a good heart for African. But it depends on the social support structure that you build. It depends on how you build your mental space. It depends on your sleep. Do you sleep?
Yeah.
Because when you sleep, you're rested, you're healthier. Do you exercise? So even in spaces where you can't exercise, you can just walk 20 times up and down until you hit a kilometer, whether it's 100 meters times 10, times 20. So you're building all those things. So we still do have a choice. And the choices that you make and the things that you choose to believe from those choices will inform the decisions and the actions that you take. Are you going to sit and have a pity party and succumb to stress and depression and then get medicated for it and unfortunately succumb to COVID? Or are you actually going to choose to live? Because as human beings in psychology, we have something called a reticular activating system. Reticular speaking of our sight. So the things that you think about, believe, speak about, and focus on are the things that you find. So the moment that I made a choice that I was going to live and be healthy and be there for my children, the moment that opportunities and ideas started knocking on my door, the moment I decided to sideline certain aspects of my social space that didn't feed on the notion of surviving and soaring through COVID, is the moment that I started having different conversations with people where someone say, how are you doing this? Why don't you do this? Oh, there's a success story here. So in the midst of all that, we have a lot of inventions and success stories that we could talk about in Zimbabwe and Africa of people who have pivoted through COVID, changed their business structure and line, started doing something else. Or people who have supported each other. They might not be running businesses, but even in the informal sector, communities that have come together and started living through this thing. So we do have a choice, and it's up to us.
Nyari is saying we do have a choice. She spoke about the need to reinterpret and reframe whatever we are doing. So it doesn't matter where you are. We mustn't even give excuses where I'm saying I'm in Uzumba Maramba Pfungwe. I'm not accessing. Sorosoin is in Borodale. They are advantaged. And what exactly are you feeding yourself with as an individual for you to then say, I'm going to cope with COVID? As an individual, it's all up to you to make a decision to say, am I going to have that pity party, get into a depression, and like what Nyari said, eventually succumb to COVID? Because we know once your immune system is compromised, a lot can happen. Join us after the break. Our discussion with Nyari continues where today we are really looking at the impact of COVID-19 on our complete physical, mental, emotional well-being as individuals. And Nyari raised quite pertinent points where as individuals we've been challenged to reinterpret and reframe how we are doing everything that we do, all aspects of our lives, and to ask ourselves, yes, COVID has come, it's impacting on our lives, but what are we feeding ourselves? If I'm going to be reading, watching everything to do with COVID and be depressed, is that the best way to spend my time with, to ensure that I become productive at the end of the day? Nyari, I've watched you now. You're talking about all these things. And really the question that I now have is, I've made a decision after listening to you to then say, okay, I need to sort of even re-engineer the way I'm living my life. I have a business that's been struggling. I'm a consultant. Consultancies were drying up. But I need to move away from that depression. How do I move away from that pity party where I was? Because this is where I was.
The starting point is drawing a line in the sand. In coaching and psychology, we actually have physical activities. So you could actually grow out and draw a line in the sand and say, enough is enough. I'm crossing over. I'm making a choice to live. That's the starting point. The next very basic things that we don't realize are important is actually having a routine. A routine where when you wake up in the morning, you feed your spirit, soul, and body through exercise, through your spiritual devotions, regardless of what religion you are, and also just reading and nurturing yourself. And then your personal hygiene, you bath. You dress up. During COVID, we're looking good.
Yeah.
Right. And then you carry on without a plan, but with your day in mind. The next thing is to actually just start thinking. Burn the box. Don't even think. COVID, this pandemic is not a time to think outside the box. Burn the box. Sometimes you have to actually reinvent the wheel. Sometimes you have to look around you and see what you can do differently and repurpose. Yes. Repurposing is sometimes, you know how you have a long skirt and it's got a wide waistband and you wear it as a long flared maxi skirt. But on another day, you wear the waistband up on your chest and it's a dress. So repurposing is sometimes taking something that is meant for a certain function and purpose and using it for something different. So you can repurpose. Look at the things that you're currently doing and find how you can repurpose it. Also begin to think about who is in your environment, who can help feed your will to live, feed your choices, and who supports your choices. Because it's not an easy journey. So you need the right people to constantly be saying, are you okay? How are you doing?
We have others who actually don't even have a pair of shoes. They don't have, the only thing that's within my household is water, which I've gone to a well, which is far away to fetch. I don't have. So even when you're talking about decluttering, there's nothing to declutter.
I don't believe that there is no one who has nothing to give or nothing to do, regardless of your station in life. So no matter where you are or how you are, whether you're in UMP, in a community that is seemingly so far away, find like-minded people who you spend time with. Come together, collaborate, discuss positive solutions that you can bring to your community. And you'll always find that when you're in an environment where people are gathered together, you bring the right positive resources to transform your environment. So I know the conversation has been like, people are starving. But in a starving community, I'm sure someone has a cup of sadza, just one cup, even if they're a family of 5. And the next person has another cup. And if we gather all the cups on the street or on the area, we can actually make a huge pot of porridge and feed everyone. The problem is because we become so selfish and so individualistic, and we want somebody else to solve our problems, and we think that we're doomed. But as long as you make a choice to live, you begin to find that God, the universe, whatever you believe in, begins to draw to you opportunities and situations that will give you a way out. That reticular activating system, your eyes begin to fall on the diamonds and the gold. When you're in the negative pity party space, all you see are opportunities for infection, for losing your job, for being broke, and for dying of starvation. But when you begin to focus on that will to live and succeeding, you begin to pick up the diamonds, the gold. Oh, you remember that person, and you succeed.
You know, when you're speaking like that, I think just watching the First Lady went to this community, I think it's the Roma community, where those people, they didn't have huts, they would sleep on trees actually, you know. Very well. And then recently when she went back, I think after implementing projects, the whole community now has gardens. They've now started building houses. You know, it's by the community, for the community. So when you are talking about that, these are people who didn't even have clothes, some of them, you know, like living in that stone age. So the points that Nyari is raising is to say, no matter where we are, no matter the circumstances, we can actually do something. She said, I don't believe that. As much as we might think, I've got nothing at all, but there is something that you can do, even with the little less that you have, if there's that kind of word. But really, Nyari, then looking at moving forward as a parting shot to us as Zimbabweans. Yes, we have had the impact of COVID-19, but here you are saying there is something that we can do. We can use the little resources that are there to make something out of our lives, to continue coping with COVID, to continue leading our normal lives. COVID-19, nobody knows when it will go. It might be the new normal. Your parting shot.
My parting shot, two things I think about. The first thing is gratitude. As a people, as a person, we generally are ungrateful because we're constantly aspiring for more, comparing with what the next country has, or my neighbor next door has, or my colleague has. But just being grateful that you actually have a place to lay your head, whether it's on the floor, or that you actually wake up the next morning without a COVID-ish sounding cough, anything. So nobody has nothing. Everybody has something to give, to do, or to be grateful for. Gratitude is the key ingredient for happiness. Happiness is not because you have a great economy, great leadership, and you have all the money you want. Happiness is actually being grateful for what you have. And that in turn attracts more to you. It encourages endorphins and hormones within you, and your immune system is stronger, you're more creative. And from a place of peace, you can do greater things than you can do from a place of panic, worry, and negativity.
I don't think I even need to add anything. But really, she's brought out these key issues. I'm sure you and I, we've been motivated, we've been encouraged. Now we can positively cope with COVID-19. She has told us that we need to always self-introspect and ask ourselves, what are we feeding ourselves with? There is something that we can do. Let's focus on the positive. Let's focus on productivity. There is something that we can do, no matter our circumstances. Until we meet again next week, it's goodbye.